What's up, guys? Welcome to Among the Fence, my YouTube channel where I do music reviews. My name is Aaron, and if it's your first time seeing one of my videos, I'd like to welcome you to my channel where we just chill and talk about all the things that we love or hate. And if you got anything you want me to review, leave a comment below letting me know what it is, and we'll get you squared away. But for today's review, we're going to be checking out the new album, In the Court of the Dragon by Trivium. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the band, Trivium is a heavy metal band or metalcore band, whatever, from Florida. They started around 1999. And In the Court of the Dragon is their 10th studio album. They're one of my personal favorite bands. Their albums, Ascendency and Shogun, are two of the greatest albums of all freaking time. And their 9th studio album, What the Dead Men Say, was highly acclaimed. A lot of people's album of the year for 2020. And it's been such a short amount of time in between albums for them. And while I liked What the Dead Men Say, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be a little bit heavier, wanted to have a little bit more of an old school Trivium flair to it, and it seems like they brought that back for In the Court of the Dragon. And the album starts off with the song X, or 10. I'm assuming it's referring to their 10th studio album, which is an instrumental. Not really a whole lot going on, really just sets the tone and the atmosphere for the album, and then it goes into the second song on the album, which is the title track, and also pretty close to my favorite song on the album, In the Court of the Dragon. It's an absolute killer song. I did a review on this song earlier when it very first came out. The chorus is one of the coolest freaking choruses I've ever heard. I gave it a 5 out of 5. It's like probably the third song I've ever given a perfect rating for. And it definitely has some Shogun throwbacks to it, specifically in just the song structure and the overall sound, and the distortive vocals are just absolutely insane. Like I said, the chorus is phenomenal. And then once you get to the bridge and everything's kind of just starts happening, you forget just how heavy the song is. The chorus comes in one last time, and you got Matt screaming at you. It's just, it's a fantastic song. Feast of the Fire is another song that stuck out to me quite a bit. It has this mystifying intro that slowly evolves into a sick riff that kind of sits back in the verse, which is more bass and drum heavy. The pre-chorus has that beautiful melody that we're used to hearing from Trivium, and then the chorus is Matt's cleans and a superb hook. The breakdown is fantastic with distorted vocals, and it brings some of the anger into the song, a little bit more aggression before it goes into a solo that melts your face off. And the bridge has a really good build-up for the final chorus, and the outro is just a masterpiece. Literally every single song on this album could stand alone as being practically a perfect song almost. And a lot of these songs have really cool like themes to them, taken from Greek mythology and different books and stuff. That's where In the Court of the Dragon came from. It was a theme from the book. And then you have a song like A Sword Over Damocles, which is a Cicero, I believe that's how it's pronounced, parable about a tyrannical king named Dionysus II. I'm assuming that's how you say his name. Damocles requested to take his place as king so he could enjoy his luxuries. But the king hung a sword over the throne, and it was suspended by a single horsehair. That way Damocles would understand the dangers of being a king, because I guess Dionysius II was a horrible king, and a lot of people were very treacherous, and he had to kind of watch his back a lot. So even though he had all these luxuries, he still was constantly in danger and always on his toes as long as he was king. And a lot of people wanted his throne as well. And the song comes in with kind of a slower riff and chants before a nasty riff ends up taking over. The distorted vocals in the verse sound fantastic, and they're pushed just a little bit harder before it goes into the pre-chorus. The chorus has Matt's clean vocals in it and some very impressive drum work. The bridge is absolutely nasty, and I love the vocals and the melody in the background throughout the bridge. The solo is very tasteful. It's just a very classy sounding solo. I wasn't really a huge fan of like the interlude that breaks the solo up, other than the drums. Then a fire-breathing guitar solo comes directly after it, and it just flows into the final pre-chorus and chorus. And I love how the solo just continues to stick around and adds a little bit more intensity to the pre-chorus before it finishes the song off. The Crisis of Revelation has a very old school thrashy Trivium sound to it, especially in like the verse. Like the vocals and the melody and the pre-chorus, all of it reminds me so much of the song Ascendency, and I just love the throwback feel to it. The chorus has some great cleans that's accented with some distorted vocals that pop up every once in a while. The second verse opens up quite a bit about halfway through and adds a lot more variety to the songs. That way it doesn't just sound like the same kind of music is being repeated throughout the verses. The bridge is just a mosh pit waiting to happen. And the solo, I gotta admit, it was kind of weird. I'm not really a huge fan of the effect that was on the guitar. I think it's almost like a wah effect or maybe a tremolo effect. I'm not really sure. I wasn't a huge fan of it though. But then the drums kind of take over a little bit more, and there's like a Van Halen-esque style solo that comes after it, a lot of finger tapping, and the double bass sounded fantastic. And the last half of the solo sounded good. It's just the first half is just a little weird. The song The Shadows of the Abattoir has like this clean classical style guitar passage thing in the verse with some clean vocals. The vocals sound really good. This is probably like the best Matt's ever sounded. I gotta be honest, I'm not like a huge fan of his clean vocals, especially like later on in their later albums, but it sounded so good. And it's very theatrical sounding, and I was a little worried it was gonna come off sounding just silly or corny, but it wasn't at all. The song sounds so good, and the chorus is huge. It's very vocal driven. It's got a good hook and tons of emotion. The song structure is absolutely incredible. It just keeps moving along, and you don't really get a feel for where it's going. You don't get too comfortable with any certain section. The bridge brings out a lot of intensity though, with a breakdown and vocals and lyrics that hit very hard. The guitar solo is very squealy and aggressive, and it fits and matches the vocal melody perfectly. And the final chorus hits that climax of passion just right. No Way Back, Just Through has a very traditional metal, like heavy metal sound to it. Something that you would hear off of maybe the Crusades, I don't know. But I feel like this song sounds a lot better than almost anything that was written on that album. It's got a very strong riff and vocals that sit kind of behind the mix. And I gotta admit, I'm not like really a huge fan of how far behind the mix they sat. It just sounded kind of weird. You do get some great harmonization from the guitars though. And the chorus is simple yet very effective, as the lyrics get stuck in your head very easily. Very straightforward song structure. There's not like a whole lot of progressive experimentation going on here like a lot of the other songs. So it's kind of nice to just sit back and listen to something that feels a little bit more like home. And the bridge and the solo are probably the heaviest parts of this song. I do also like the final chorus that has a little bit more technical guitar work going on behind it, and some atmospheric stuff comes afterwards. And then once you think, when all this atmospheric stuff is happening, you think the song's over, but then it just starts chugging away all the way to the end. And then we come to the longest song on the album, Fall Into Your Hands, which is about 7 minutes and 45 seconds. It's almost 8 minutes long. And it's got a groovy, chimey guitar riff in the intro, and the verses get pretty thrashy, and the vocals are just so raw and distorted, and it sounds so scratchy. It really takes me back to like the early Shogun days. And this is what I mean by they're a little bit more experimental in the progressive style, specifically compared to the last song, No Way Back, Just Through, because Fall Into Your Hands has like 2 verses and 2 pre-choruses before we even get to the main chorus. And then the chorus has fantastic sounding cleans that are just gigantic. The post-chorus is some of the best musicianship I've heard on this album, and the bridge is absolutely disgusting. It's probably my favorite part on this entire album, actually. Like halfway through, it takes a turn and becomes a little bit more suspenseful. It's got a great build up into the guitar solo. This is like one of the best progressive metal songs I've heard in a very long time. Like the song goes through so many different stages, and again, you kind of forget where it started and how heavy and aggressive it was. And then all of a sudden verse 3 comes in, and you got Matt screaming at you, destined to burn, and you're just like, oh shit. I'm kind of torn on how I feel about From Dawn to Decadence. It's just because I like most of the song, and I don't really like some of the song, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, it has a fantastic sounding melody in the intro, but the vocals in like the first part of the verse, it just sound weird. It sounds like he's singing through a megaphone, and then all of a sudden his vocals come in clear, and then that megaphone effect comes back in before it goes into the pre-chorus. I don't know. I just wasn't a huge fan of it. But then the chorus has like this stop and go stompy kind of rhythm, and it just sounds super dope. And then the second chorus is twice as long and twice as good because of it. And then the riff and the bridge is badass. It's so in your face. One of my favorite riffs on this album. I'm just not a huge fan of the verses, just the vocal effect on them, I guess. And that brings us to the closing track titled The Phalanx. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's kind of a three-parter song. The intro has some really good presence to it. Then a groovy riff takes over, which eventually like flows into the verse. Halfway through the verse, some distorted vocals come in, and of course they sound fantastic. The chorus has a beautiful synth and a great hook. Then a guitar solo breaks out like right after the chorus, in between the chorus and verse 2. It sounds fantastic, really keeps you on your toes. You don't really know where the song is going to go. And I can't get enough of the distorted vocals, specifically in verse 2, as they feel a little bit more raw. And of course, the second chorus is twice as long, so it's twice as good. Adds a little bit more lines to it. And it's followed by two proggy guitar solos that are broken up by like a bridge section in between them. And it takes a groovy turn, and some clean vocals come in mixed with some atmospheric, victorious music that kind of comes out of nowhere. But it really makes this song feel like it's the end of a journey, like you've reached something, like a goal, or you're victorious. It's very unpredictable sounding, and it's just an exceptional ending to a fantastic album. So this album has a lot of things going for it. I want to say that the drum work is probably the most notable thing. Yeah, there's really good sounding riffs, but it's all very Trivium sounding, and it's matte. So I mean, it's kind of what you expect to hear anyways, but the drum work just stands out. Every moment that the drums can be doing something to really fill in a lot of the empty space, it's not taken advantage of. They absolutely do that. And it doesn't sound like it's being overplayed. It's not overbearing. It doesn't sound like it doesn't fit in. It just fits perfectly. And also the clean vocals and the distorted vocals are some of the best I've heard from Matt in quite a while. What the Deadmen say, yes, it sounded good, but it just didn't, it just doesn't sound as good. I feel like the vocals in this are a little bit more raw sounding when they're supposed to. Like, not everything is completely polished over, but at the same time, nothing is super duper raw sounding. When the vocals need to be cleaned up a little bit more, they are. And when they need to be a little bit more angry, more in your face, more scratchy sounding, they are. And it really brings back that old school sound, but also like mixes in some new ideas. It's almost like, I don't want to say like Trivium reinvented themselves, but they've definitely shown how much they've evolved, how much they've learned over the years through 10 friggin' albums. And they've really learned what works for them and their sound, and how to work with it and evolve it and take it and continue to make fantastic sounding music that continues to just sound fresh today. The only issues I really had with this album are the guitar solos. For some reason, they didn't always sit well with me. And I gotta admit, that's kind of a thing that's common with me and Trivium. I guess I'm not always a huge fan of the guitar solos. I'm more into the riffs than anything else. And also, I've listened to a lot of guitar solos in my day, so it's really hard for me to really get into them anyway. So I'm trying not to let that be a huge factor in rating or giving this album criticism. I will say that I wasn't a fan of the effects that were used on the guitar solo. Like I said, a couple times there's like this wah thing, or it's like a tremolo effect. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's just the two guitars harmonizing together. It just didn't really sit well with the song. And also sometimes there was some vocal effects that were used that just didn't really sound all that great. It would have just been better if they were more raw sounding, or maybe just not having such an awkward effect on them. But again, I don't feel like that really takes away from it. It's more of a me thing than anything else. People probably liked it that way. So with all that said, I gotta give In the Court of the Dragon by Trivium a 9.2 out of 10. In the Court of the Dragon was almost a perfect album for me. For a lot of people, it will be though. Just for me, these are like some of the issues I had with it personally that kept me from being completely wowed throughout the entire thing, which I almost was. But it's still a very strong contender for Album of the Year. I don't know if it beats out Era or if it beats Born of Osiris though, because both of those are such strong releases. I haven't completely decided, and it's too early because I'm still not done listening to this album and fully trying to get everything I can out of it. But I want to know what you guys think. Go ahead and leave a comment below letting me know what you thought of In the Court with the Dragon and what you would rate it. And as always, if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below letting me know what I should review next. If you want to help support me and my channel and just make me feel good about myself, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell icon. That way you don't miss out on any of my future content. You just get notifications every time I upload a review. You don't have to go searching for it. It just helps me to help you. And I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day or night whenever you have me watching this. And I'll talk to you guys next time.
I was trapped in ignorant kid relying on my parents said to save me. Years gone by, turning over, ignoring every day. Said to convict me. 17 at the top of my